I really want to do these drugs. I like getting high. I enjoyed it. And that's that was part of my identity. But then at the same time, the Holy Spirit constantly tugging and saying, like, that's not
Right.
for you. That is not your
Mhm.
identity. I've called you to something more. It was simply a decision. Enough is enough. And I'm going after Jesus.
Man, welcome to another episode of Rebuilding Life After Addiction. And Aaron, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's good to be back. Love what you guys are doing, man, and just niching down and really reaching out to people who are coming out of, addictions, coming out of rehab and trying to establish themselves. And so it's really great to be here, man. Be a part of your journey and see what we can do together today to help somebody who's listening.
Well, you want to jump in maybe a little bit and give our viewers some context? So this is an addiction podcast, right? So we're talking about that. So maybe some of your story and some of your background.
I guess, okay, quick story as far as what's leading up to being here with addiction. Dad was alcoholic, crackhead, and he did get sober when later on in life. But of course, I came up in that lifestyle. And then when I was 12 years old, I had been really wrestling back and forth with God. Are you real? Are you not? Am I going to live for God or not? And then finally decided to go ahead and make the leap, give my life to God.
Mm.
Felt like He had called me to travel and to speak in foreign countries and whatnot. And after I committed my heart to God, someone breaks in my house about 6 months later with a knife and rapes my mom in
Wow.
front of me in the middle of the night. So I basically flat out told God, like, if that's what you're going to allow, you're not really the kind of God I want to ride with. So um, deuces to the Jesus thing and straight on to drugs and just started from there. I really liked smoking weed. I enjoyed it. I was experimenting, hanging out, getting curious, and it quickly escalated. I got into harder drugs, and I remember sharing the story in my book from I Failed God. Now what? I know it was a different book, but anyways, I remember laying in a bed one time. I had taken some X pills, and I started begging God. I said, God, if you let me live through this, I'll never do drugs again. I was just rolling so hard, and I would constantly use, but in the back of my mind, I knew God was calling me to ministry. I remember one time sitting in a circle, smoking, passing the weed, watching my boys smoke, and telling myself in the back of my mind, do they know they're going to hell right now? Like I know, if we die, do they realize there's something more? Because I felt God's spirit just drawing me. And I know a lot of addicts can relate. Maybe, you're listening to this episode right now and you might be just coming off drugs or in that same little place where you're struggling, but deep inside, there's more, right? But it's like
Mm.
those drugs get that clutch on you and you just step back and forth, back and forth. And so that's where I was wrestling. Like, do I go all in on my purpose? Do I do something better with my life? But at the same
Right.
time, I liked getting high. I'm not going to sit around and say, oh, I'm so glad to be out of that lifestyle. I mean, I am, but it's not like sin is boring. I mean, it wouldn't be
Right.
tempting if it was boring. I enjoyed that lifestyle and I couldn't get away from it, man. And I struggled back and forth for many years with it. And then in my late teens, I finally came through and I'd say quitting was easy. I did it about 173 times, but when I when I finally quit, I've never looked back, man. I've been clean for I think I was 19 years now, and just doing the
Wow.
work of the Lord, man. So it's been a journey, but it's definitely been a blessing and a good journey since getting off of the drugs. That's for sure.
Go ahead,
Dude, so
Rob. I'll let you
you
go first.
you you went, yeah, you went through, man, how old are you now?
35.
35. Wow.
Yeah,
19 years of sobriety, 35 years old, married and have kids?
we're married. Got 2 dogs.
$2. Okay, you got
Yeah,
some fur babies. There you go.
yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you, Aaron, what was that pivotal moment for you when you made that shift, right? Like, as you said, you went through numerous second chances, if you will, right? Because it felt good to get high. What was that revelation? Like, what was that, that knock you off your horse going to the road to Damascus moment for you?
Honestly, Rob, I'm glad you're asking that question because truth is, I don't know. I can't
Mm.
look back and say like the shining light or you know I was on my deathbed. Like it wasn't that type of experience. It was sort of a like I really want to do these drugs. I like thugging. I like getting high. Like I enjoyed it, and that's what that was part of my identity. But then at the same time, the Holy Spirit constantly tugging and saying, like, that's not
Right.
for you. That is not your
Mhm.
identity. I've called you to something more. And so it was this constant back and forth where I would quit and I would go and I'd really enjoy doing the things of God, but then I would fall back into that temptation and I'd get discouraged and feel guilty and pull away from God, but then really enjoy that drug. And it was that constant back and forth. But deep inside, I knew the life I wanted was the life with Christ. I knew that I wanted ministry more than I wanted that drug. I
Mm.
could not get myself to the point to be ready. And it was a constant tug of war until finally I just pulled the rope to the other side and like I was done. But it was a decision. It wasn't an epiphany. It wasn't, like I said, a deathbed experience. It was simply a decision. Enough is enough, and I'm going after Jesus.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's good. So you talk about that on you illustrated that tension, right, that existed between the life of purpose and the life of using, and I appreciate the transparency. Like, it's like, I mean, just because we're on the other side of this thing doesn't mean we have to act like we didn't enjoy getting high. Like, there's a reason we did it. And a lot of people they try to make themselves sound more holy and righteous. Like, I wasn't holy and righteous at all. I was a drug addict and I enjoyed being a drug addict for a while. But you talk about this tension that was back and forth. And so when you finally did make that decision, you said you pulled yourself away from it and that decision was made. Like, so what was different that time around, right? From the other times that you were kind of dabbling and you felt like you enjoyed a little bit of the Lord, but kind of running back? Were there any things that you specifically did differently in regards to maybe cutting relationships off or some strategies that put you in that place where you were going all in for Jesus?
Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. Um, Doing drugs is not just an action; it's an entire lifestyle. It's an identity, and so with that comes the activities, the people, all the time consuming things, all the friendships. What I did differently, that is very clear, is that I made an entire lifestyle change. So there are
Mm.
people to this day that I miss who even support me in my walk with God. There are people who don't and also mocked me at the time of the transition. But literally, I completely changed my lifestyle. No more going to the places, completely exed relationships and friendships, and shifted totally into building relationships with Christ followers, other men and women who were following God and involved in ministry. And just, I mean, I broke up with my girlfriend who wasn't following Christ after dating her for 2 years, never went to those people's houses again to this day. Like, it is a lifestyle change. And unless you're willing to make that lifestyle change, I don't know how it can happen, because
Right.
it's like there's this fire and you keep sticking your hand above the fire, but your goal is to not get burned by fire. And
Right.
until you just, pour water all over the fire and go do something else instead of sitting at that fire, you're going to keep getting burned. And so it was the lifestyle change, man. There's no other way
Right.
around it.
Yeah, man, that's good. But it's not a sexy answer, right? That, this is going to be hard work, right? I mean, and that's the part of, like, rebuilding life and trying to pursue the dreams and pursue the goals. Like, I think, I mean, I struggle with that a bit too. I mean, just being vulnerable, digging into that a little bit more. Like, I, I heard somebody say to me a few weeks ago, if we could only see ourselves the way other people see us, and for the good, I mean, for the good, speaking in the positive, the way other people see our influence and our impact on their lives, then it would really impact, how much more motivation that we have. Because I think sometimes we do struggle with some of that self-worth. I do personally, like, man, am I really making a difference? Am I really moving the needle? And I I think Facebook memories for me for a lot of that. And I know that sounds crazy, but I post a lot and I think about seasons of life, and it's like, man, I remember looking at a memory 8 years ago where I was posting about something I was praying for. And like now I'm living in the middle of it, and I
Wow.
think that's craziness, to think about that because we don't see it day by day. And so we've got to be able to have this Holy Spirit driven drive to keep dreaming and keep pushing for more, because otherwise I think the tendency is to go back to what's comfortable. And for many of us in recovery, what's comfortable is, well, this sucks. I enjoyed drugs back there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't, my life is hard right now. So I only remember the good from the drugs and I run back to that and don't realize that it actually created a lot more turmoil than the pain that I'm feeling of having to push through just this moment.
That's so true, man. This because the pain of change is harder before it's easier, right?
Yeah.
So it's doing drugs and dealing with the consequences is not fun. And so, like I said earlier, no long-term addict wants to continue being an addict. But the pain of not doing the drugs and changing my lifestyle and going through withdrawals and like that is harder than just dealing with what I'm used to dealing with. The all the downside of using drugs. So it's harder, but then it gets easier. And then you look back and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, now I'm glad I'm through that, right? But it's the pain of change that stops people and keeps them the same the rest of their lives. We had to work for something that so many other people take for granted. And it's not that it's bad for them, but like they just don't know. They don't know what it's like to be sober because they've always been sober. So when you fight
Right.
so hard to have sobriety, like it's so meaningful. You're like, now what am I going to do? Like what? Because the possibilities open up to you, and there's so many options and so much purpose that you can fulfill. And you're like, wow, like let me do something now, like something other than just
Yeah.
spend my time letting grass grow under my feet, like you said.
Right. Absolutely. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks, Aaron.
Oh yeah, dude. Thank you for having me, bro. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and anything you need along the way, man, on your journey, reach out to me, bro. Open door with you.
Yeah, likewise, man. And for those of you watching, please, all the Aaron's links will be down below in the description. So please check his channel out. Are you on Facebook right now? Are you
I'm on
just
Facebook,
primarily
but
Facebook and YouTube, right?
YouTube, yeah. Yeah. YouTube's where
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
posting
So
everything. And then I got my books on Amazon, but YouTube is where we can connect best.
I just had birthday balloons
I
go
saw
across
it.
my face for
I saw it,
no
bro. It
clue
was really
why.
cool.
What was
And we
that? Yeah.
celebrated.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, Aaron's on YouTube. Check him out. Go check some of his videos out and give him subscribe and all that stuff while you're over there. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Rebuilding Life After Addiction. We are here on YouTube again once a week, and then Facebook. We've got the group going on as well. And so, if you're looking for a community of people to chat with and engage with, and all that jazz, the community on Facebook is a great place to do that. God bless you guys. Thank you for tuning in.